All right, we're here on another episode of Cohort in Progress. If you haven't checked out the last one, go listen to Dr. Sunil Waddle. You'll learn a whole ton about DBA programs and a little bit about fake news. Pretty cool. I'm Kevin Burgess, and this is
Ashwini Bhaskar, and we are super happy to welcome Lynne Anderson today. She is the program director who selected all of us, I guess. That's the reason we are all here. She collected the whole cohort.
Somehow I let you in.
That's right, you let us in. Welcome, Lynne.
Well, thank you. Thanks, guys. So yeah, as they were saying, I'm the Associate Academic Director of the program for admissions and onboarding the first years. And I also teach the Qualitative Research Methods first year class.
Super.
And I mentor tons and tons of students doing qualitative research.
Super. So, I have to ask you, Lynne, when you're putting these cohorts together, what kind of people are you looking for?
Oh, man.
Oh,
You skipped the introduction.
Oh, you skipped the introduction.
Look at this. We got Lynne.
Okay.
She's like executive DBA council, too. That's an important part of your
am.
world.
I am.
You went to a rival of the school I got my undergrad.
That is true.
So-
We are rivals, and good old days of ACC rivalries. Now our rivals are in California.
I was about to say,
Yeah.
we play like UCLA and
Exactly.
stuff.
It totally stinks. I hate it. I hate it.
Super.
Yeah.
So sorry for
Okay.
jumping the gun here, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
There
Lynne.
I've been at Temple 25 years. I'm in my 26th year at Temple, which is absolutely frightening. I don't know how I got so old. But I was hired initially at Temple right at the time of the Enron scandal and WorldCom. Temple decided, like many business schools at the time, that we needed to have a required ethics course.
Sure.
Right around that time, AACSB, the governing body of business schools, was seeing all these white-collar criminals with MBA degrees doing the perp walk. And so basically they're like, oh, I guess we need to have ethics. So they hired me. I was at St. Joseph's University, a Catholic, a Jesuit school that already had ethics before that.
Sure.
So I jumped ship, came over to Temple to kind of run our business society and ethics program. Meanwhile, I'm also a qualitative researcher, but I've spent most of my career at Temple kind of leading all the business society and ethics stuff, running our corporate social responsibility minor, teaching corporate sustainability and helping coordinate with other departments and colleges around the university our sustainability certificate. And I'm also the faculty mentor for our Net Impact chapter. Net Impact is a international organization for corporate social responsibility professionals, and we have a student
wow.
chapter there.
You got a lot of stuff on your plate.
Yeah, I
there.
kind of do the dark side of business. I mean, that's basically my whole thing, is to kind of look critically at business in the business school.
That's a lot of your
So,
research, it seems
It
like,
is.
too, right?
It is. It is. Yeah. Yeah.
So, as I said, I have to ask you that, coming from an ethics background,
Right.
teaching in a business school, does it strike you as ironic?
Oh,
Right?
absolutely. In fact, for so long, before business ethics became a required course in business schools, say in the 90s when I was doing my degree, everybody would always say, it's an oxymoron. Ha
Right.
ha, it's really funny. And it was interesting because even in my MBA, I got my MBA at Georgia Tech University between 1988 and 1990. We had a little not required elective ethics course at the time, and it was taught by a Presbyterian minister.
Oh my God.
And I remember just loving that course. So when I went back to do my PhD, I did it in an organizational behavior department in a business school.
Sure.
But I made sure that I kind of really emphasized business and society in the courses that I took. I had a very multidisciplinary PhD because you could kind of even tell at the time that there was a growing interest in business schools and business school scholarship in the notion of what does business owe society and what does society do to support and owe business.
Right.
And sure enough, during the 90s, our governing body, which is the Academy of Management, which is the 20+ thousand member academic kind of home for all management professors.
Right.
You could see our divisions were forming within that group. Like there was one for corporate sustainability. There was a division for social issues in management, in addition to business policy and strategy, org behavior, operations management.
Right.
You could already kind of see people were starting to think about, what does business owe society? And the whole notion of corporate social responsibility was really welling up in the 90s.
Right.
Why do you think that shift started happening, right? What?
I think, a couple things. I kind of remember like during the beginning of my PhD in the early 90s. This is a kind of a cool story. My faculty mentor I was assigned to was an OB professor named Tom Bateman. In fact, he's one of the people credited with the construct of organizational citizenship behavior, kind of
Okay.
do-gooders in organizations.
Sure.
Tom says, "Lynn, I need you to do something for me. This is your first assignment. Go to the Chapel Hill Art Movie Theater, take these surveys, hand them out before and after people watch this film."
Okay.
All right, so I did it.
Okay.
The film was Michael Moore's very first documentary, Roger and Me, about the labor issues in Flint,
yes.
Michigan, and his hometown, with General Motors pulling out of his hometown after literally it had supported that town for 50, 60 years, right?
Right.
And so Tom, who was a real kind of positive psychology guy in the business school, even he was kind of seeing the writing on the wall by the early 90s that, the media suddenly after, I got to even equate it to the wall falling. Like with the wall falling in 1989, before that, you couldn't critique capitalism, right? It was like sacrilegious to critique capitalism.
Yes.
Suddenly after that, you started seeing like slowly in the media, you started seeing critiques of like high CEO pay. You started seeing critiques of, people being angry that companies were pulling out and outsourcing and getting ever cheaper labor elsewhere. And Tom kind of caught that buzz.
Right.
And so he got me really interested right away in the concept of cynicism toward big business. And that's what
Sure.
Tom was studying. When I was handing out surveys before and after the movie Roger and Me, we were looking at people's attitudes toward big business before
Right.
and after watching the film.
Wasn't that the Gordon Gekko era?
Yeah,
Where
just
it was-
after it.
Right?
Just after all
I mean,
that.
forget about ethics. We were talking about greed is good.
Yeah, right.
I haven't heard that name in a long time either. Like,
Right?
Michael Moore, his
Right.
movies, and
Yeah.
I never even.
He won an Oscar that year for Best Documentary. I mean, a couple times he's won, but that was his first win.
Yeah,
Right.
and especially like Chapel Hill with that coming out too. Like that's
I know.
it's probably an interesting place to be.
Really interesting place to be. At the time, we had I think Jesse Helms was still a senator in North Carolina, and his comments were, "We just need to put a fence around Chapel Hill and keep the animals in."
Oh my God. So Lynn, you were pretty early into this ethics part in
Very,
business, right?
yes, yep.
So you
yep,
said 25 plus years now.
yep.
Do you
30
think-
years, really.
So
Yeah.
do you think the business environment has become more ethical as you're kind of gone 25, 30 years through it?
Not at all. In fact, I just was teaching my sustainability class today, and we were saying to my students that basically, there was hope maybe between 2000 and 2015 that really we were moving from shareholder value to stakeholder value.
Correct.
There was all this espoused commitment. In fact, one of my colleagues in one of the European business schools did a study of Fortune 500 companies' annual reports over the last 40 years. And after 2010, the word stakeholder was the most common word in Fortune 500 annual reports. Like there was all this espoused that we're going to look out for all of our stakeholders, culminating in 2019 August when 183 members of the Business Roundtable signed a big statement and put it in the back of the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, pledging to look out for all of their stakeholders and not just their stockholders.
There
So
you
we
go.
were like, woohoo, this is going to happen. This is great. What a joke. I mean, look where we are today.
Do you see that?
Those same
Kevin?
people are in Davos just, going big oil and going, fire your employees. Instead, put AI in,
Going with the trends.
going with the trends, yeah.
following the
ESG's fallen out of favor in just 4 short years.
Right. But I think the movement did start in the right direction. Maybe it kind of sort of lost steam along the way. Glenn, would you say?
It's hard to say. Like, I don't even know where my beliefs have changed so much over the years. People always misconstrue, our mid-century Nobel laureate, Milton Friedman. They always misconstrue him because they think he was just an absolute free market guy, right?
Right.
He wasn't. He believed businesses should do whatever they want, but there should be an amazing guardrail around them in terms of government regulation setting the rules. He just said we shouldn't depend on business to do
Business to
good,
do that.
that you need good government regulation. But what Milton Friedman never foresaw was the amount of money and lobbying that corporations do to change the
Change
rules
the
of
rules.
government and pay
Right.
off both parties of our, and he could have never, he died before Citizens United was passed in 2010.
Right.
Thank God for
Is
him.
that one?
Yeah. I mean, really.
He didn't want to see that one.
Yeah, he just never predicted that. He always like spoke as if government was really going to regulate business and stuff. And, we know that that's not true.
That's not true.
I think Citizens United and like all of that is super interesting now. And I don't know a whole lot, but I know that it used to be where following the money was like, oh no, if they know where the money's coming from, like, oh no,
Right.
that's not good.
Yeah.
Now it's almost like, who cares?
Who cares? And then now it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to buy Greenland because I'm all these because
Nobody's selling it.
The Estee Lauder Baron wants mineral rights over there. Like, and there's just no pretense of like,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
So there's an ethics person, like,
Yeah.
your hair stands up all the time.
Well,
now,
it's
or-
funny. I think I wouldn't even call myself an ethics person. I think I'm a big systems person. And so to me, this all just sort of makes sense that the power grab is out in the open. And if you look at our corporate history and capitalism, the history of capitalism, there have been other times when it's been so overt and out in the open too. But you got to think about sort of the New Deal Keynesian period in our country between the 1940s and 1970s, when, the New Deal, gave a social safety net to most people, that FDR put, taxed the wealthy and corporations at a very high rate, while we had, diversity and equity issues still during that time. Economically, people were very equal. We didn't have a lot of poverty. I mean, all that says that all this stuff can be reined in and people can do a good job if we create the systems to support it all. So I think I'm much less a few bad apples individual ethics professor and more anybody can be bad in a bad system kind of ethics professor.
Right. So
We'll
I
learn
think
some of this on Sunday.
You actually will.
Yeah.
You will.
Yes. Very interesting. Very interesting. So what do you think? I think it's maybe the current administration, it has become like that. But I'm sure when we were doing our MBA, stakeholder was not the word there.
No.
I'm talking about 91, 93.
Yeah, you were my era of MBA, right? It wasn't.
You're
We
talking
didn't
about
heard it.
shareholders,
Right.
not stakeholders.
We never heard stakeholder until later.
Right. And then it went up a little bit, and now it seems to be now dismantling altogether.
Right.
Looks like to me.
Yeah.
So a lot of young people, I work with a lot of young people as well, mentoring and coaching
Right.
businesses at SCORE. And I keep hearing that this is capitalism gone awry,
Yeah.
right? So do you subscribe to this capitalism gone awry, you think?
I think capitalism is awry.
Oh, really?
I like that.
I mean, I love Piketty's work. I mean, Piketty, Capitalism in the 21st Century, the book that was the most notable book of the 20 teens. The French economist who wrote this big treatise,
right.
beautiful formulas, gorgeous prose, basically explained his book could be narrowed down. His 1,000 pages could be narrowed down to one formula. R is greater than G. The rate of return on capital is always going to be greater than the growth in the market. So if Ashwini starts out with $1 and you start out with $5, it's just going to be the great unequalizer. Capitalism is inherently the great unequalizer. And that's what he basically showed in beautiful prose and formulas,
And
But then he wrote
come to fruition.
I mean,
right?
Piketty's going to get a Nobel Prize in
Yeah.
economics in a couple. He's still too young, probably, but yeah.
All right, Lynn, you got to allow me to push back a little bit on this.
All right.
Okay, so here's my little pushback. But capitalism really, hasn't it brought so many people out of poverty? We hear about this in China, for example. 600 million people out of poverty after they've started all this capitalistic stuff and restructuring in the country.
It's hard to even untangle it just to capitalism in a place like China, because China's had a strong state the whole time and has offered much more state support and a social safety net to its citizens than the U.S. has. So you can't just say it's the markets that have brought those people up. You can say it's the way that China has managed the markets, and they've managed the markets much more tightly than we have, as you well know.
Sure.
They only unleashed some industries to the markets and didn't unleash others.
Right.
But-
So just
but-
control capitalism, maybe.
Well, that's
Would you-
the next book that Piketty wrote in 19 or 20 was called Capitalism and Ideology. And in there, he looks at how different cultures and their ideologies shape the way that capitalism is enacted in those cultures. Because in his first book, when he just, Capital in the 21st Century, he only looks at the UK and the United States. And he looks at that same period in both those countries where government reined capitalism in between 1940 and mid 1970s. And he said it happened, until Reagan and Thatcher kind of took the helm in the early 80s,
Right.
and then just took the gloves off of
Right.
capitalism and just let the markets flow. Right? They actually had great equality. The societies were fairly equal, stable,
Sure.
less poverty. So managed capitalism could be an equalizer, but it would have to be managed really strongly. And, I read another really great book by James Fallows, who's an international correspondent and writer for The Atlantic for many, many years. He must be in his 80s now. But he wrote this great book that looked about how every empire nation in the last couple hundred years has gotten to the top of their pinnacle by rigging their own markets and by fixing things, right? And only when they get to the top do they say, free markets rule, and then they let go, and then they plummet. Like the British during the colonial era, they did that. The U.S., we did that. We had this great era, and then when we unleashed the markets, we plummeted. Japan had their heyday, remember, in the early 90s and stuff, same thing. I mean, it's kind of an interesting theory that the free market mythology kind of ruins countries.
Okay, wow.
You
That's
talked about
amazing.
reining in capitalism. What does that
Yeah.
even look like? What does that mean? Like
It means
how
like
do we do
the little any country's ever reined it in. You could say the New Deal and things like that, where government put in social safety nets, protections, made sure the tax rates were really high on
Right.
corporations and individuals. That's what I call reining it in.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we've gone down a pretty heavy path here.
That's what it's all
Right in the
about.
beginning of our podcast, I
That's,
guess.
that's why they're gonna keep listening.
Or they're never going to listen
they
again.
tune out.
Why'd you bring that communist on? Why?
I know. Well, okay, let's make it a little bit more topical.
Please.
I was going to ask you the question before
Yeah.
Kevin corrected me that we haven't even done the introductions as yet.
Yes.
So coming back to the cohort, current cohort in progress, as we call this program as well.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit of how you put these cohort together. You're like
Yeah.
27 people
Right.
in the cohort. So when you guys are sitting around the table, all you decision makers, what are you guys looking for and how are you going about it?
It's funny. There isn't I guess there's a few things that are common to all of you.
Okay.
And that is, we really do look for, in the interview, an expressed curiosity and energy. And then it's, I feel like I can recognize it. And both of you have it. Both, obviously you're doing something like this too. You really have it. But we really look for that. We take some people that have a little less of that, but that's what we really look for after they've met all the other criteria.
Sure, sure.
They've had a really remarkable career. Maybe their grades sucked in undergrad, but they did great in their MBA or whatever. And then they've, and we also, we just relish, and we never could have predicted how diverse this program was going to be. Like
Right.
literally when I was privy to a lot of the early conversations in the early 2000s at the Academy of Management meetings of sessions that were held to talk about the need for scholar practitioners and the need for a DBA. And at the time, the formula for a DBA was this industry person who wanted to stay in their own company, learn the craft of research, and then bring it right back to their company. And that was it, darn it. They keep your foot in industry, stay there. Don't take the place of any of our PhDs who want tenure track jobs. Don't try to get academic jobs. Stay in industry and do this.
Right.
Well, wow, were we all wrong. I mean, really, we even did our first selections that way. Like I remember doing interviews with my other colleague, Steve Casper, who's since retired. And he would be like, we can't take that person. They think they want to teach. I'm like, why can't we take them? They might teach, a couple of years down the road or whatever. But we were so adamant that we just wanted industry leaders, business industry leaders,
go back to
to go back to their company and just, that this wasn't a segue career degree or anything like that. Go back to their company, make their company better. And that it was such a narrow view of what you guys are and could be.
It's probably kind of the result of the times, though.
Yeah.
It feels like, right? Because now, if you tell someone they're going to spend a whole career at one company, like that's not
Laugh at you.
Yeah,
Right?
it's just not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
So Was it marketed like the marketing changed?
No,
I'm
I mean,
assuming?
I felt like once that, we became members of EDBAC and started talking to other programs and stuff, everybody started realizing, wow, this degree is going to be and is far more diverse than we'd anticipated.
Right.
We're getting nonprofit leaders applying. People that we thought might have gone to get an EdD or something are now getting this DBA, because it's a different kind of degree. We're seeing military folks, who still have their military benefits come, and they want to maybe segue out of military into something else. We also saw that there happened to be more spots in academia for our DBAs.
Sure.
There's non-tenure track clinical professors of practice. There's heads of centers. There's, high-level administrators. And we noticed that a certain number of our applicants came from higher ed already and wanted to continue. So we quit, within a few years, we realized, oh, we had it wrong. We didn't predict this thing right, And so a lot of people are using it as a segue too. Many folks use it to hang up a consulting shingle.
Right, and you're talking to one.
Here's one. You're
25
already,
years.
You don't even need this degree. You're already wildly successful. But
That's true. Yeah. What?
Well, I love this discussion. Go ahead. But I have to give you this fair warning that we asked this question of Sunil as well, our last guest. If you guys have seen our previous podcast, what was the need to have a DBA program? And I'll tell you, I'll nuance it by saying this, which I said to Sunil as well, that it sounds like to me it is PhD light.
Yes.
So is that how you guys programmed it? Is that how you designed it? And are you seeing the results that you were expecting?
All right. That was such a, again, even in the early 2000s when I'd go to an academy and management session, professional development workshop on need for practitioner scholars, should we do a DBA degree? And it was coming out of Europe and we were listening to people. Even back then, people understood that business scholarship's sort of embarrassing in some ways because we are literally always behind. Like you look at engineering, you look at, biology, you look at the hard sciences. What's happening in universities is spawning innovation, and we're just after the facts, studying things. I mean, it's pretty lame, really. I got to say, overall, business academia is kind of lame, And so there was this idea that we needed people with one foot in here and one foot there, and we needed more connections with industry. We need to do better as a whole profession of connecting with reality, right?
Right, and I think the problem of diffusion, right? All the wonderful research that happens in all these programs and the universities, I don't know what is the rate of diffusion in practices. Right. So I think bringing in practicing scholars is a great idea because you're going to go back to the industry, hopefully.
Totally.
Some of us, for sure.
Yeah.
And maybe our diffusion will become better.
Absolutely.
Right.
And we argued that, I wasn't one of the people spearheading this program initially. They drug me in kicking and screaming because I am anything but a practitioner. I am a sheer, pure academic. I write theory. I write stuff no one reads. None of my stuff is important at all to business people, right? So I was the wrong person for this program.
We read a few papers that you wrote.
Yeah,
and I'm sure Kevin is going to talk about that.
Also, the drop date is not here yet. So
right.
I want to hear that.
No, but I mean, I am not there's nothing about what I've done with all my research that's practitioner based, but they pulled me in because I'm so glad they decided that qualitative research is equally important as quant in these programs.
Correct.
And that was from the beginning. The earlier programs like Georgia State had these amazing MIS scholars who do qualitative research. And so inherently the programs all became equally quant and qual, which is not the case for most of the business PhD programs.
Yeah, sure.
Like our PhD program in my department, if they want to take a qualitative research class, they have to go over to sociology and use up one of their electives. Qual is not emphasized at all. So they pulled me into the program, but I wasn't one of the people, who wanted the DBA. Sunil he wasn't there then either, but he probably knows more about why we started one. At the time, our rankings issues at Fox, we were very successfully in the graduate area, very wildly successfully in the graduate area. So it kind of made sense that this new degree was emerging, that Fox would jump on it.
Right.
And I'm really glad we did when we did, because now we're one of the venerable old programs,
Right.
in
Once
the
you
U.S.
Wasn't Fox one of the first ones to start a DBA
About the
program?
fifth or sixth in the U.S. I'd say the old venerables are Case Western, Georgia State, Florida,
Mhm.
Pepperdine.
Right.
Those are the old venerable
You know,
programs.
Harvard used to have a executive DBA program. Why did they drop it? Do you know?
They called it that, but it wasn't of the line that, yeah, they're not even in that business right now. They're not
Okay.
even in there. Yeah. Although their PhDs are a little more practitioner oriented than most PhDs.
Sure.
Are they?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, they are. They
So
are.
you talk about the importance of research,
Yeah.
right? And you probably get a lot of pushback,
Oh, yeah.
right, of qualitative, because
Right.
it's like, I'm going to steal your
Right.
thunder,
It's
but
fluffy.
especially
No,
before we talk-
please,
yeah, it's
please.
fluffy, or
Right. Right.
like the business world is KPI driven, right?
Right.
And it's
Yes.
metrics driven
Yeah.
and revenue driven and big
Yep.
data driven right now.
Yep.
But then you start thinking about the questions, right? And why qualitative is important. So
Right.
what drives your thought to why qualitative research is so important, and
Yeah.
what do businesses miss when they don't look in that direction?
I'm so glad you asked, because that's kind of the story of my career. My undergrad was in biostatistics. So when I started
Hardcore
my
numbers.
doctoral program, I was everybody's favorite fellow student because I could do all the statistical analysis for everybody. I was always on the computer running SAS for all my colleagues who were scared to death of all the stats. I knew all the stat theory. I was Miss Statistics, right? And I was in org behavior, which is a primarily positivist quantitative field. Primarily, it's changing though, it's changing. And so when I started studying certain constructs that I started to study as a new doctoral student, like cynicism toward business, like incivility in the workplace, like environmental championing, um, I quickly came to the conclusion that survey research and quantifying these very vague and ambiguous concepts wasn't ideal. That I can't just survey a bunch of people about cynicism. I need to watch them, talk to them, engage with them. So I quickly jumped over to sociology and took, with one of the famous qualitative sociologists, Cheryl Kleinman, took a seminar with her as a doctoral student and realized, oh my God, I need to be doing this. My poor chair, Tom Bateman, was like, I'm not adept at this. I said, well, I'll do a mixed method dissertation then. I'll do a survey and qualitative. I did a quant and qual, mixed method. But then literally after that, I just lost faith in positivism for the study of human behavior. I literally lost faith in survey research. I just totally realized
Like
all that
the
it misses.
just the biases, or the
The fact that people just so
wrong
cursory,
questions.
the whole idea of trying to create these psychological constructs like cynicism toward big business and then try to define it so concretely, try to measure it. You
Causation
lose
from
right,
it.
you lose all the richness of what it means.
Right.
There's layers and there's just, outward layers of what makes someone cynical. And if you're just going to survey them about a few things, you're going to miss so much.
Right.
So I felt like as a behavioral scientist, I was really limiting myself if I stuck to positivism. And so I basically shot myself in the foot in terms of my career and did what I wanted to,
Wow.
but and then became more of a qual researcher. And then even more, I realized that even qualitative research and listening wasn't enough. I needed to engage with the critical philosophers of the 20th century. So I started getting into critical theory. And right in the 90s, a new subgroup of the Academy of Management was formed called Critical Management Studies. It was mostly kind of, beleaguered labor sociologists who were 90 years old from the UK, who were angry at everything in capitalism, and they were sitting in business schools and they needed a home.
Yeah.
So we created this new little group, and I was one of the few Americans in the group when
wow.
we first started. Now it's huge, and it was one of the first ones to use Foucault, to use Derrida, to use the Frankfurt School philosophers to examine and critique things happening in business and business schools. And so your assignment for this week is kind of to look at a critical article,
Yes.
interpretive
Yes.
article, and so that really is my trajectory. I went from
Right.
being a positivist to an interpretivist to a critical theorist in my career, because of the limitations I felt in being able to really dig deeply into the concepts I was passionate
It's
about.
very interesting, though. I really find it very interesting, Kevin, that she came actually from qualitative
Oh, I was a pure quant
background.
girl.
and
Yeah,
and,
pure quant.
you were disillusioned with that, and then
Yeah.
here you come into I wouldn't say I wouldn't say I've had similar strong experience, But as I said, during the MBA period, I was like, quant was the thing,
Yeah.
right? And in my career, I want to say maybe 10 years
Yep.
in my consulting career, I realized that talking to people is more important than because designing a mousetrap is easy, right?
Yeah.
Designing the better. That's what consulting is all
I mean,
about.
Exactly.
we talk about
And-
building products all the time, and we'll just go build it
Build it,
instead
yeah.
of like listening and talking and
Right,
understanding our
right.
markets.
But I have to say that consulting, from my experience, has also taken in a lot of qualitative stuff now,
Sure.
right?
Even it's gotten more for you, more qualitative.
Right. We're talking about design thinking, for example. I don't know if you
Right,
heard
of
about
course.
design
No, I
thinking,
taught that this summer in Spain. Design
There you
thinking.
go.
Yes.
right? So that is
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
an EQ, right? Everybody
Yeah.
talks about EQ these days. And I don't know whether this is just talking points or if people
Right.
absorbing all that stuff into the organization or not. But it's definitely become talk of the town.
Do you think so?
Like EQ
Yes.
versus IQ?
Yeah, I don't see that too much in my world in like tech right now.
In tech, yeah.
Yeah,
maybe.
and
Yeah, maybe
and that's
not.
where like I think there could be a big disruption that could happen in,
Mhm.
like in tech because in the assignment that you gave us,
Yeah.
right? It made me like we think about how is it used in our workplace, or,
Right.
like how could you use your study in your workplace? And I just realized, like, I mean, we talk about AI all the time now.
Sure.
Everyone's definition of AI is so different,
Oh my God.
It
Totally.
is.
right?
Totally.
Like your definition could be like go to ChatGPT, and yours
Right.
could be of looking up like how many parameters can this model handle,
Right.
Like those are vastly different. And so if you start asking studies
Yeah.
about that, you're going to get results that don't make any sense.
Absolutely.
So
But is
Absolutely.
this Kevin, is this a good segue to talk about AI in qualitative stuff?
no way.
Right?
Of course.
Because
Sure.
because think about it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, now I can give AI a prompt, and it comes up with really dense looking, very
Sure.
intelligent sounding paragraphs.
Looking and sounding. I like
Right?
that you added
Right.
those. That's
right? They do.
Qualifier.
Yeah.
Right?
Qualifiers.
So, Lynn, tell us, what is your take on this? Are you seeing
Yeah.
a lot many students now? It's been around for a couple of years now.
Sure.
Right? Are you seeing a lot of students using it? What do you think about AI?
I think I have just absolutely loved Cory Doctorow's work and his term enshittification. I feel like he is totally right that AI is a tool of enshittification for a lot of knowledge development.
We
You
learned.
guys read any of his stuff yet? It's
No,
great.
but I'm going to.
You go Cory Doctorow. He's E.M.
Okay.
Doctorow's son. He's actually himself a science fiction writer, but also for the last 30 years has headed up many ethical societies, kind of overseeing AI. He has a wonderful essay, kind of that's a subset that I'll post it for you guys. Just kind of looking at the AI bubble right now, and he has a whole book called Enshittification that came out this year.
We learned a new jargon here today.
yeah.
Enshittification.
Very professional.
Very
Yeah.
professional.
No, but I use it to say that in many ways, I'll just mention this article that came out in the Guardian a couple days ago that he wrote, this essay, because somebody asked him about the AI bubble, and he kind of just laughed and said, he sees it really pulling a lot of people down. As with most economic bubbles, the people that benefit are the people, the wealthy tech people, they hype it all up so they can make lots of money. Then the middle and lower classes like me join in because our pensions get caught up in it. Then they pull out just in time and then we lose. It's kind of, it adds to that, R is greater than G kind of problem, right?
Sure.
And so he said he predicts that's going to happen. He also goes on to say that he said, the idea that AI is going to take your job, he goes, that's what the tech AI salespeople are going to tell all the CEOs so that they fire half their workforce. They'll tell you that, you can just charge me $100 million and you can, get rid of your $300 million of employees. And then you can just hire back a few cheap ones to check on AI. And then he said, that's going to lead to a shittier product and process. That's what he means by enshittification.
So I have two takes on that. One, I agree that the enshittification is going to happen.
Yeah.
Because it's new tech, it's new adoption,
Yeah.
it's new understanding. People will use it wrong.
Right.
But I don't know if I subscribe to it's not going to cut a whole bunch of jobs. I
Right,
think it
right,
is. I
right.
think it's
It is gonna
have a massive impact.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
No, he thinks it will too, but
Okay.
wrongly. He kind of thinks that they're going to cut people before realizing they needed
Right.
these higher level coders to stay around because AI is just not going to be self-checking very well.
What
That's kind of his.
what I think we're missing is it feels like we're jumping straight into AI is amazing.
Yeah.
Let me make these changes
Yes.
instead of AI is amazing. How do I integrate that into my business?
Right.
So much smart, right.
because
right.
it feels like there's just still people on every level in a company that just doesn't quite, we fully don't know what it's doing. And we
So
don't.
true.
And then you have
Right.
people that have embraced it and they're like super productive.
Yeah.
So that you compare it to these people that have embraced new tech. I don't know.
But you know, Kevin, allow me to parse this question in two parts, though, because we
Sure.
talked about commercial stuff and how it is going to impact jobs and so on and
Right,
so forth.
right.
But can we, for a second,
hmm
comment on the tool itself?
Yeah,
What do you think about the tool itself?
yeah,
If correctly used,
yeah.
right? And let's remember one thing: it is here to stay.
Which tool? Like
We talk
AI is so
AI
broad.
as a tool.
Broadly, but there's so many subtools, right? but
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Like any other general purpose technology, GPT, like
Yeah.
electricity or steam or whatnot,
hmm
this is here to stay. This is not going away.
Right.
We're not going to
Right.
wish you
Exactly.
inchitification or
Exactly.
not.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. It's here.
It is here. So would you like to comment on
Yeah.
how useful the tool is or not useful? the tool?
Yeah.
How is the tool itself?
I'd love to because I just happen to be sucked in, even though I'm more of a skeptic than a lot of business faculty about AI and its use for scholarship. I've been sucked in the last 3 years at the Engaged Management Scholarship Conference, the DBA conference, to sessions on how to use AI in research.
Right.
And each time I've been paired with these two women who they both got their DBAs at University of Missouri St. Louis. One of them is now a high-level tech manager for a smaller university near St. Louis, and the other one is a faculty member at a small school in Illinois. And they've been, writing research about AI and knowledge and scholarly and scholar practitioner knowledge and stuff. And they're both so well versed. They know so much. I love being in the session with them because I learned so much. But this last one at Pepperdine that I was in with them, I played the devil's advocate. The two of them what they did was pretty cool. I'll show you guys the PowerPoint, but they took the entire DBA research process of for literature review, for doing this, for each part of a paper, how AI could be useful, how it could be misused and abused. And, and I gave it to Sunil, I gave it to Pallavi when I came back. I'm like, because we're going to do Fox is going to do an event on AI, I think in May or June. We're going to do one of our big events. But I guess after seeing that, after listening to them, and after doing more follow up on all that, and also receiving papers from DBA students that are AI generated,
Yes.
I am not in a good place with it right now. I'm getting crap. I'm getting hallowed, ghostly sounding, voiceless work.
Like 5 sentences that don't mean anything.
That don't meaningless. I'm getting hallucinated references, and that's how I found that three of the 5 groups with the group project in the class you're in last semester used AI because their papers didn't make sense, their proposals, and I found their hallucinated references, and I had to have them redo some of their stuff. I don't think it's not doing what students wish it would do, which is write a paper for them. I can see it being useful, though. I mean, to me, it can be useful in synthesizing and building to a literature review. But to me, that is such a critical brain craft to becoming a scholar, is that synthesis, discernment, writing that front end of the paper to make the argument for why you should do that research. If you're letting an AI tool do that, you're already behind the game. You got to me, that front end and crafting those arguments and the literature and the need for this theory to be developed further for this reason, you're losing so much as a student, as a scholar, if you're not writing that part.
Do you kind of think why are you even here?
I have with a couple people that have turned in
that.
things. I'm like, and then I've even been working with a couple students this year who keep and when you guys get AI to try to write a methods section, it's crap. It repeats the same things. It has these weird categories that don't align with what a published research paper does. Right. I mean, it can't be used as doctoral students would like it to be used yet.
Yeah, interesting.
The tool is not ready as yet.
The tool's not ready for. But I would say that when it is ready, your brains will be less prepared. I mean, I do worry about that. Again, I think the beginning of a paper, embarking on a new research project, and discerning which articles are important yourself, reading them, grabbing things out of them yourself. To me, it's hard for me to imagine a world where that's not valuable, but I guess we're about to enter it.
You're about to, you're about to inshitter it. I don't know.
Totally.
I mean, I think the question is not, the question is to be or not to be.
I
It's not the
know,
question.
I
It is
know.
to be.
It is to be.
It's happening.
It's going to happen whether you like it or not. The question is, how do we use it
I
correctly?
know.
How do we use it so it is not dumbing us down,
Right.
but adding value
Right.
to us?
And it's
I
not ready
guess.
yet, but yet is so fast.
Yet is
right?
so
Like
fast,
yet
true.
could be
Yeah.
in 2 weeks. All of a sudden, in 2 weeks, you could just be like, "Whoa,
Totally.
it does know how to
So
synthesize."
again,
this.
I'm struggling with this too. I'm no expert at all on it, but yet I'm receiving, scholarly work that's obviously built partly or at least somewhat by AI, and I'm having to figure out now if that meets the standards that I hope for, that students will be able to do and think. And as of yet, I've not found that it has or does, and
Right.
then being in these sessions with these real experts, these two women from Missouri St. Louis, they're a little more hopeful than me that can be part of processes. I was on one Fox dissertation that used AI as a methods collection, as a data collection technique, and it was a shit show.
Oh,
It really was. It didn't do a good job. It hallucinated stories, media stories about the topic that the student was engaging in. And us faculty on the dissertation were like, oh, maybe it's not ready for this.
right.
It's not ready for this.
You can't be the only one. Like,
No, I
do you,
can't
do you,
be.
do you talk about that like in the EDBA? Like, I'm sure
Yeah.
that's a common topic, and
Yeah.
actually about the EDBA
Mhm.
like council that you're in.
Yeah.
Like, tell us a little bit about that council and what kind of
Yeah.
things happen there.
The council's pretty cool. It's only 15 years old, and and we're one of the older members.
Yep.
I hope that we always keep a Temple presence on it. There's only always between 12 and 16 board members,
Okay.
and now we've got 76 EDBAC members. There's 76
wow.
DBA
EDBAC.
programs around the
That's
world that are
right.
part of this thing, and we have 11 more. I'm on the membership committee. We have 11 more in our portal applying right now.
Sure.
It's a tough thing to be part of a new professional organization or a membership organization because we're not an accreditor. So we're fighting a lot now about quality. Like, are we to be the harbingers of quality, or do we let everyone be a member and then we have different levels for
Levels of
quality? Who are we to say you can't be a member if you want to join this? But we're having all these discussions about criteria. Like, one, do we let any programs come who have no physical presence? They're all online. That's a decision we have to
Right.
make. Two, do we let for-profit programs in? Because in the US in particular, there's a stigma with for-profit programs,
Sure.
but in some of the developing countries, it's the only way to get programs started, right?
Okay.
Right.
And we want more programs in Africa and the Middle East and everything.
Sure.
So that's another, and then what constitutes a dissertation defense? Because some schools, barely have you do much for that, but ours is as rigorous as a PhD defense, and
Right.
and so is Georgia State's, and so is Case Western. So
Right.
we're arguing all that as a newer organization. This is where we're drawing the battlegrounds right now on some of the issues.
Right. I
Um,
mean, Temple is a R1 university. I learned that
know.
terminology when I got in. Like, that's the highest rated research
Right.
institute.
right.
So I guess we gotta have some quality.
Exactly. I mean, we're always going to. I mean, you're so lucky that because we're an R1 school, the cutoff for being a graduate faculty member is so high that you're never going to get bozos on your committees. they have to be vetted. You know what I mean?
Right.
Versus some of the schools are R2, R3, or they don't have the same vetting procedures in place.
Right.
And so that's another thing we sort of have to look at EDBAC is like, are the faculty that are teaching these students at the school, are they research active? Have they published research themselves? And so
Super.
it's funny to be the police, the cop, for this new stuff that's happening.
right.
We just don't know how copish to be.
Sure.
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 What are the objectives of EDBAC?
That's a good point. We're actually redoing our mission right now. But I think I would say if I just had to kind of verbalize it, it's to create a community for the emerging degree holders and alumni who want to create a larger community of practitioner scholars.
Sure.
So it's about community building.
Okay.
And I'd say the thing we do best is this annual conference that usually happens in September. And that really is a community builder. It's a beautiful event every year. It's always sponsored by one of the host universities. It's been at Antwerp School of Management. It's been at the University of Calgary. It's been at Pan America University in Guadalajara. It's been at Case Western University. We hosted it at Temple in 2018.
Oh, wow.
And it's always a really lovely communing of fellowship among people holding these degrees who are just as cool as all you guys. Like, I really, this is what I love the most about this program is I can't believe the people I get to meet, like you guys. Like, EMBAs, they're great and everything, but you guys are another level of curious, weird, over busy, crazy, just kind of amazing people. The
Right.
DBA community is all like that. And the DBA students that I meet from other schools are like that too. And you guys all should know each other. And we
Right.
do. When we bring Temple students, to the international conferences, they always make long-term connections with other DBAs around the world. And it's a really nice growing community. I think EDBAC wants to foster that.
That's what's interesting is I've
Yeah.
noticed that in the DBA program in general, it's the
Mhm.
most it's the closest I've ever been with a cohort.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, you're already noticing that your first
Yeah,
year
right.
too, which
Yeah.
is great.
I don't know
love
if you I feel like every day new groups are going out and hanging out with
Absolutely.
other groups
Oh,
for
I love
talking.
that. I love
So it
that.
definitely fosters that.
Yeah, I feel like, and again, we get comments sometimes when we go to the conference because like I was just thinking at Henley on Thames a couple of years ago, we had 5 second-year students come like we always do, but then we had like 11 alums come, 3 faculty. At the gala, which was like a James Bond ball, black tie ball, with James Bond girls running around and music, we all sat together and we're just laughing our heads off. And other programs are like, geez, you guys are so noisy. You guys all like each other. What's going on with you Temple people? It's because we're a cozy, everybody knows this is the cozy program.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, Kevin, if you'll allow me, let's pivot toward maybe something adjacent to this, right? Adjacent to this.
This. Sure, please.
So a little bit of a selfish question here. So you've been part of this DBA, I want to say program or this tsunami of DBA program that
Yes.
have come after you guys, right after you guys started. So what have you seen DBA graduates come out and do? What have you seen the majority? No, I'm not just talking about Temple.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the entire community
Right.
of DBAs. What do they do?
They do a lot of things. One thing a lot of them do that, again, we sort of didn't expect is to get at least half a foot in academia in some way, shape, or form.
Okay.
They end up getting attached to their university. They get attached to, let's say, technology and innovation. Then they get asked at another university in their town to be the head of the technology and innovation center at that university. Or they get so caught up in some research where they meet somebody from a DBA from another school, they're asked to go to that school and be a clinical professor of practice. So I'm noticing that for sure, that more than we expected at first when we coined the DBA, we're getting you guys to business schools, and not only business schools, to ed schools and other places and universities in general,
Sure.
which is all good. I think I love working side by side. You guys need to be next to me because I've only had like 6 years in business my whole life. I need people like y'all teaching with me, right? You much better you can do a better job with students than I can. So that's to me a really good thing. So a lot of them are doing that. I'd say, there's always a couple prominent grads of our program really just to me, like this moved them up to that C-suite spot.
Okay.
They really did. And I'm surprised. And it's not unusual when I talk to the other the program directors from other schools I guess everybody's been a little surprised at how legitimized and respected it's become in businesses to have this degree
Right.
as something that would put you over the edge to the C-suite or at the cusp.
Wonderful.
So that's kinda
we
cool.
asked the same question with Sunil, and remember, he said something that kind of stuck with me. He
What's
said that PhD is the new MBA now.
Yeah.
PhD is the
Yeah.
new MBA.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
right?
maybe.
Because the world has become so complex.
Yes.
Just 2 years of
I
MBA
know.
doesn't solve it for you.
No, it really doesn't.
So for all the people listening to us and watching us, DBA is a great program. You guys should consider that.
It's such a cool program. And again, the people make it. Like that you guys want to do this, between the ages of 40 and 75, that you want to come back and do this. You're already a weirdo. You're already crazy for doing this, right?
Doing
You
this,
guys have very thick lives. You've got children, you've got aging parents, you've changed and shifted careers already. You've already got a master's degree. You're a global business person, yet you still want to take the time to do this. And so it's a special kind of human. And again, that's when you were asking what we look for. The people that get that are the ones who naturally fit it because they're the curious ones that it doesn't make sense to do this in most cases, but you do it anyway.
Yeah. Why don't we talk a little bit about some of your research?
Sure.
So there's 2 First of all, you have some of the neatest titles of papers ever. One of them is tit for tat, and I don't. Hopefully, ChatGPT didn't give me a hallucination, but the spiraling effect of incivility in the
Incivility.
workplace, right? And then you have one that's like vampire squid
Yes.
jamming blood funnels or something.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
yes.
so talk about one of those.
All right, I'll start with tit for tat because it's some of my earlier research. You guys, you're old enough to remember. You may not be old enough to remember. Kind of in the early '90s, there was a bunch of situations of postal workers getting workplace violence, being victims of workplace violence.
Right.
Workplace violence happening in postal, going
That's the
postal.
phrase,
Right.
going postal.
Okay, going postal, exactly. So Christine Pearson, one of my faculty members at UNC at the time while I was a doctoral student, she and I were talking about all that, and we were kind of looking at the burgeoning research in business schools on workplace violence, but also understanding that violence was such a rare thing, in workplaces. It was very rare. So we started talking about, well, what happens before that? What happens before you get to violence? So we kind of started looking in psychology at the deviant behavior research and the criminal behavior research. And there, there was a distinction between overt aggressive behaviors or kind of covert or ones that weren't aggressive. And so we started thinking about, workplaces and what happens before you get to violence. Why would you even get to violence? And it just happened to be at the same time in the early to mid 90s is when the Jerry Springer show picked up. And Jerry Springer show, if you guys knew anything about that, it was this TV show where they brought people who were like, hadn't spoken in 3 years and were getting a divorce. They brought them on the show at the same time and they'd scream at each other and there'd sometimes even be brawls and stuff, right?
Yep.
So there was this sentiment in between 93 and 95, 96 that the world was falling apart, that decorum was dead, that casual Fridays at workplaces were causing people to let down their guard, open their pants, do all sort of bad things they shouldn't do, right? There's this idea. And so we kind of became interested in the conflation of that with this what happens before violence. And so we thought about what word we would use to try to capture this, and we coined, it was already a word, of course, incivility. But nobody had yet studied it in workplaces. So we tried to introduce the concept. And Chris at the time had a lot of funding. She was also really good friends with a female dean of the UNC Law School at the time, Judith Wegner. So we decided to put on this big forum in Chapel Hill to try to understand this emerging concept of workplace incivility. So we brought in Miss Manners. We brought in emergency room doctors and workers who work under stressful environments. Judith brought in all these lawyers who work in public defense and in courts because they get a lot of screaming and violence too. The qualitative interpretive research mentality is when you're first studying a new concept, you don't have to look for generalizability. You need to look at where these things happen. Where am I going to find incivility? Sure. So we brought together all these people for 2 days and had this big forum. We brought police in. We brought all sorts of people. It was the weirdest thing. Yeah, it was really fun forum in Chapel Hill. But it got us sort of thinking about this construct of workplace incivility. And we ended up sort of defining it from that conference as, ambiguous intent to harm, a kind of a lower level,
low intensity
mistreatment with an ambiguous intent to harm, where you can't tell if someone's meaning to harm you or not, and even sometimes the perpetrators don't know if they're intending harm and aggression.
How can you not know if you're intending?
Sometimes we gave the example of sort of not refilling the coffee pot when you've done the last. You may just be busy that day, or you may say, "Fuck it, someone else can do it instead of me." You know what I mean?
Right.
And so that's what we meant. And so we tried to capture that, that kind of social concept that was burgeoning plus what happens before violence. And it ended up, we were just so lucky. The timing was perfect. It ended up being a very used, well-studied construct in organizational behavior now today. Not due to me, because again, I got bored and checked out when they started turning it into survey items and trying to do surveys. I'm like, oh, I'll catch you later. I'm moving on to a new concept. But Chris Pearson and Christine Porath, who were my co-authors on this, they ended up making careers out of, workplace incivility and, going on as pundits on, CNN and stuff and doing a lot of stuff with workplace incivility. But I want to bring it to you guys because interestingly, Susan Madambi always makes sure to tell me, Lynn, your research was cited so many more times this year, and it's your papers from 1999. What's going on? Incivility has welled up again with all these ideological and partisan divides in our country. So in some ways, it's a hot concept again.
Right.
So I wanted to, is it, what do you guys think? Do you think it's something we should be examining again? Do you think that incivility captures what's happening in our country now? Or do you see it in your workplaces? And if you do, what does it look like?
For sure, for sure. But before I answer, I have to ask you, Lynn. So, and you mentioned this a couple of times, before violence happens. Right?
Yeah.
So what is a marker?
Yeah.
What is a marker before violence happens? Can we identify that
Just
stage?
certainly that the tit for tat was this spiraling diagram that we ended up through talking to people at that forum, through some other ethnography and observation we did, that when it hits when suddenly the intent to harm gets stronger and you start to see aggression, that's when it can go into violence, depending on a lot of other little things like, is the perpetrator someone who would be prone to violence? There's a whole lot of things that mediate or moderate between feeling angry at someone and violently reacting, right?
Sure.
Is it a kind of workplace where it's okay to show that? Certainly in a blue-collar workplace or a factory, we notice that incivility might express more as anger and violence, more overt ways, versus a more controlled workplace,
A little bit passive aggressive.
An accounting firm or whatever, you're not going to see that as much,
Sure,
right? And
sure.
so we sort of started to see that there were certain levels that could get to of that spiral where it could blossom into violence.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So have you
How
ever?
about with you guys? Yeah.
Yeah. So do you ever see the YouTube channel of Veritasium? You ever heard of that channel?
Tell us.
So
Veritasium.
Derek, I don't remember his last name, but it's a really good channel. It's very he'll dive into history, he'll dive into technology, he'll dive into a lot of topics, and high production value. But he has one episode where he actually talks about tit for tat, and I thought when I read your paper,
Yeah.
I was like, uh-oh,
I-
did he
I've
get
seen
that
the-
phrase from you?
No.
And I was like,
no.
oh, maybe you got
I
it.
got it from somewhere. Yeah.
Well, maybe you popularized it
Yeah.
into his mind. But he used that as an example for escalating nuclear tensions,
Yes. Yes.
And
Right.
it takes, and what he talked about is everybody that tit for tat. And he had two rows of blue and red, and it would just keep happening. It would
Right.
keep happening. And then it just takes one person just to let it go. And once it gets let go, it de-escalates.
Right.
Now, did you experience that in your research? Is that kind
Yeah,
of
there
how
were
that
points in our model where de-escalation can happen. Like if there's a third party watching who's a mediating type, or if one of the folks involved in the engagement just decides they should check out. I mean, de-escalation can happen as easy as escalation.
Yeah.
In fact, it happens more often.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think I've seen it. I've seen it I'm thinking emails. Okay, I know you're online. I know you've seen it.
Right.
Right.
Why don't you
I get
respond back?
the red message.
Right.
On a Teams, team or Slack, it's I know you've seen this.
Yeah.
What's going on? And or I know you're not busy.
Right.
Why aren't you doing this?
Right.
But I haven't thought about it in terms of am I perpetuating it too?
Right.
And it's maybe I'm unintentionally perpetuating because I could see myself accidentally doing the same thing back.
I know.
Right?
Being a
It's like,
smart
well,
ass back. Or,
well, you didn't respond next time for a day, so I'll give it 2 days. I could, I'm human. I'm sure that happens.
Right.
For sure.
I can't think of an exact
Well,
specific time.
I mean, I'm trying to think of consulting. I mean, I spent
Yeah.
25, 30 years in consulting. And one of the things about working in consulting is you're always in a matrix environment.
Yeah.
There is no line function. I
That's
don't work with
true.
the same
No more
people,
line function. Yeah.
right? It is a team constituted for the project. And then
Right.
once it is over, it gets disbanded.
Disbanded.
Right.
So it has pros and cons, right? In the sense that since I'm not going to see you again, I can be a little bit more uncivil,
Okay.
right? Because it doesn't matter to me.
Right.
I'm not going to see you after a couple of months. I'm
Yeah.
gone,
Right.
right?
So why waste your time
Right.
playing the game?
Correct.
Yeah.
Right? So that's one part. The other part I would tell you is the teams come from different places,
Right.
right? And the culture is different, even within the United States.
Yeah.
Right? You get somebody from California versus from New York,
Yeah.
right? Versus down south,
Yep.
right? Totally different culture.
Yep.
So hence what they would call it uncivil is not something like New Yorkers are
Absolutely.
meant to be straight talk, guys, get it
Absolutely.
done, get out of my face, I'm
Yep.
done.
Like,
Right?
on the
Yeah.
way here, you were Ashwini was telling the Uber driver, just honk at the guy. Right? Like,
And
so
I'm like, we're in a rush, we're late, I'll get the guy.
I'm from the South. I'm like, no,
No.
we're not doing that.
So I think some of
Yeah.
and remember in a consulting environment, you got deliverables, project based.
Right.
You're in a pressure cooker.
Right.
There are a lot of
Mm.
times for people to be uncivil, right?
Absolutely.
And a lot of times, it gets us passed off as, hey, we are in a pressure cooker situation, it's okay.
Right.
And I would agree with you, Lynn, when you said, or Kevin, you said that the de-escalation also happens
Of
very quickly.
course.
Do you think that maybe in your lens, like in your mind, hey, you know what? It's a short-term project. We get it done. It moves on. But does that incivility pass over to that team after the handoff?
I think some of it carries, of course.
You think so?
It rubs off on you. It becomes your personality, I think,
Yeah.
after a little bit. If you go live in New York for 10
Mhm.
years, you are going to, some of
Sure.
it's going to rub off
Yeah.
on you. And we tend to pass that off as saying, I'm being direct and I'm
Right.
more focused on my
As
tasks
an excuse?
as an excuse,
Mm.
Totally.
right? I don't have time for this small talk business,
Right.
Yeah.
right? That's what happens more often,
Right.
really.
Right.
And that's what burns people out, really.
That's right.
I mean, in
That's true.
consulting, people get come
Wears
in
you
and get out.
down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it wears you down.
That's true. Because that's not the stuff you want to think about when you're working.
No.
You just want to work.
Right.
No. In fact, I've just anecdotally, I've had so many of my female friends from college went to law school, practiced as lawyers, and they just had to quit because of the wear down of the daily incivilities of a law job, where
Right.
you just have to always be angry and edgy and and direct.
Right.
know.
I mean,
Yeah.
talk about working conditions, Goldman Sachs, investment
Right.
banking, or
Yeah.
private equity.
Yeah.
I mean, the abuse is rampant.
Yes.
Forget about incivility.
Exactly.
It is abuse, actually.
Right. Right.
Right. Some of the tech
Overt
firms
intent to
are.
harm.
Some of the
Right.
tech firms, you will know, Kevin,
Mhm.
the same working conditions.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I think uncivility comes baked into that whole culture.
Totally.
Yeah, it is probably cultural. You probably do see it more in different environments, don't you?
Right.
Well, that was one of the reasons that you guys both you nailed this, and that is one of the reasons I could not personally feel like myself moving on and creating surveys and scales to measure it that have become popularized in my field, because I truly believe what you referred to, and that is it's socially constructed.
Right.
I can't not see incivility as constructed in any social setting by the players in it. Like you said, that somebody from the South may see that as an incivility, others. And so to me, to have a bunch of scales that try to measure it and hand it out to thousands of workers, that's not the way to
That's
study
not
it.
the
You
way
have
to
to go to
study it.
qualitative research and watch and
Right.
listen and let people
Yeah.
construct it themselves and talk about incidents.
Right.
So, well,
Okay.
to add one more thing, I mean, do you guys feel like, have you noticed at work any of the political divides causing more incivility? Are people being uncivil about that, or are people just literally not talking about politics?
It's that.
Yeah.
Where I am, it's that.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
if you talk about politics, you're like, you kind of have a feeling that you can kind of sense,
Yeah.
where people
Yeah.
stand.
Sure.
And that's probably like a horrible idea because
No, we're
that's such an
probably-
assumption, right?
Right.
But if you
I mean,
talk about it right now, like it almost feels like career suicide.
No,
Yeah.
I mean,
Not for you?
No, I mean, I'm saying nobody talks about
Nobody
that.
talks
Wow.
I
Okay.
mean, the political environment has become so supercharged.
Sure.
We don't even talk about it in Thanksgiving dinner
All
with,
right.
with your family.
Yep.
Okay.
Don't
All
even
right.
talk about it with your family. Forget
Okay.
workers.
Which is terrifying.
It's just terrifying.
It's terrifying
It
that
really
like
is.
publicly we're able to talk about
is.
it like
I
this.
know.
But like we with our families and
We
with our,
can't.
our
People,
workplace
right.
closest, we
It's so
don't.
wrong. Right.
Yeah.
No.
Do you think that like charges up that tit for tat behavior sometimes?
Well, I think when it does come out, then it can be, if it is something that you restrain yourself with your family, when you accidentally topple onto it, the ante's higher. In some ways,
Right.
he gets angrier, like I notice I've got a brother and we disagree very much on politics. We evade it for so long, but then one of us gives a clue. We say something we did that reveals our politics. Like you
Right.
said,
For
you
sure.
kind of know where people stand.
Right.
And then that sets us off. And then we're worse to each other than we would have been if we'd just been kind of talking about it the whole time.
Right.
It does feel like politics drives the majority of conversations with like friends
Yeah.
than it ever has.
It
in
never
my life.
has. Yeah.
And is that
Yeah.
a sign of the times, or is that
Who
we'll
knows?
see?
We'll see.
Right. What else?
We'll
What
see.
are the other
Yeah, hit us.
interesting research you want to tell
Well,
us
you
about?
guys mentioned the one about the great vampire squids, and let me just give you a little background on that. There was a call for papers in my field for a journal special issue on corruption.
Oh, okay.
And corruption to me, gosh, it had been studied in in strategic management as a more macro concept.
Sure.
It had been studied in criminal behavior and stuff as an individual level construct. It had been studied as sort of something you could measure and categorize, right, as like a positivist way. But I started thinking about it, and because I'd already come to believe that so much of what I was interested in was socially constructed, that corruption needed to be historically situated and socially constructed. So I responded to this call for papers in a special issue on corruption by saying that, look, corruption is inherently historical. It happens, and it's defined different in different periods. So I need to bring in historicity, which is sort of the notion of temporality in the way that historians look at temporality, which is bursts of change.
Mhm.
And then it also needs to be constructed by the players in it. Corruption always has like the corrupter, the corruptee, the people
The
affected
environment.
by the corruption, right?
Right.
And around that. So I decided to take one of my favorite authors at the time. He's kind of become a strange author now, media pundit, but is Matt Taibbi. And he wrote an article in the Rolling Stone not long after the financial crisis, calling Goldman Sachs the great vampire squid that sucks blood out of every bit of money around the globe. This
Yes.
blood-sucking
Yes.
funnel.
Yes.
So I used that incident, that idea that these financial companies during the crisis were vampire squids, to kind of examine a corruption moment, a corruption event that occurred. One of the very few people that went to jail during the financial crisis. One was a trader named Fabrice Touré, and he was the guy who was featured in what was the movie?
Wolf of Wall Street?
No.
That's different. That's a
It
different
was the one. It was fictionalized. Anyway, I'm blanking on it. Anyhow, all the notion of kind of building all those CDOs and those the financial instruments that were able to be
Big Short.
unleashed.
You know Big Short?
Really knowing the Big Short. The Big Short.
Yeah.
It was kind of fictionalized in the Big
Right,
Short,
right,
that
right.
corruption event, right?
Yep.
So I decided, let's take that corruption event and let's look at who's the corruptor, the corruptees, who was affected,
Right.
and then let's use discourse analysis, which is a critical qualitative research technique, where you look at layers of explanation about an event, like the actual event that happened. This trader did this, affected these people, went to prison, blah, blah, blah. But then let's look at what the Wall Street Journal said about it. Let's look at what the New York Times said about it. He was either a criminal or a hero, depending on what you read about him. So let's look at the media layer. Then let's look at the fictionalized layer. It was turned into the Big Short. And by the time the public, gets to process this event, it's already been
You don't know.
mediated through so many things.
Right.
So I made the argument that corruption should often be looked upon that way, that as mediated through various
Various
levels. It's
layers.
socially constructed, and it's a product of the times. And I said that particular corruption
interesting.
event couldn't have happened without Bill Clinton allowing Glass-Steagall in 1999 to
The
pass and
Glass-Steagall
opening
Act.
the floodgates to the banks becoming gambling casinos. It couldn't have happened unless Goldman Sachs had already become government Goldman, where half the people, Larry Summer, everybody who had worked at Goldman Sachs was already in the government and allowed all this. So all these things couldn't have happened without all these other historic events happening,
Right.
leading to that corruption
It's like
event,
a
and that the
butterfly,
corruption,
the butterfly
the
effect.
butterfly
of
effect, right,
corruption.
exactly. And so that was really fun to write that and to kind of do a discourse analysis of that event. But today, what would we do today to look at all, like, I think you were saying, Ash, that today we're all so much more overt. Oh, you were saying it actually, Kevin, that we're all so much more overt today about our corruption. We don't even try to hide it anymore.
Oh, yeah.
So what does that mean? Might we look at business corruption differently today? Is it still useful to look as a historical event in time? I don't know. What do you guys
Interesting,
think? I don't know. Yeah.
Like you're saying that corruption is just commonplace now?
Well,
So
and I mean, it's not only, it may not be even more common, but it's overt now. Like nobody tries to hide it, or they
Right.
don't try to tell a story about it. There aren't as many layers to untangle because they're just clear. Like,
Or
Clearly.
or maybe that media bubble that you talk about is really part of that corrupt,
Yeah,
the same bubble,
yes.
right?
yes,
So
and
maybe
it's more
that's what's
varied.
changed.
The media
Yeah.
bubble's more varied, like depending on
Right.
what media you read.
Very
Yeah.
interesting that the corruption looked through various layers. That was pretty
Right.
interesting observation.
We were talking about on the way here about where people get their media from and their
Uh-huh.
news from.
Right.
And one of our earlier episodes, we talked about fake news.
Right. Oh,
And so I started like doing a little bit of digging and just like getting a sense of where do people get news from?
yeah.
And what is news?
Yeah.
What is the media?
Yeah.
Well, podcasts were actually like a high,
I'm
fairly
sure
high.
they're high.
That's terrifying to me. No, seriously, because like we're not here to provide news.
Right.
We are here to provide some analysis, maybe some food for
Some
thought.
learning,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Definitely not news.
But I totally believe that. I mean, my Gen Z daughters, they walk around with earbuds listening to podcasts all day long.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's we don't have any news outlets anymore.
Right.
We have analysis outlets.
Right.
They're all
Mm.
pushing some agenda.
Sure.
Any
opinion
channel
based.
you pick up
Yeah.
from CNN to Fox and
Right.
everything in between, they have an agenda to sell.
Well,
Yes.
They're not telling you the news. They're telling you the impact of the news, what they want you to think,
hmm
and so on. I
how
guess.
how was media then during that event? How did it fuel the fire? What like
Yeah, I mean
How-
that's what
how
I,
did it frame
even
it?
then in like 2010 when that article came out, or when the event happened. Again, the Wall Street Journal heralded Fabrice Turvet as a hero that got in trouble, versus the New York Times said he was a criminal, a crook, or whatever. And
Yeah.
those were just two examples of many,
Right.
that just kind of framed him differently depending on what you were reading at the
you're
time.
reading, yep.
And again, it did, now that seems like a quaint ecosphere of media compared to the, the outlets
Yeah.
today with all the podcasters.
so
and-
different?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right.
Is it maybe a potential like death by 1,000 paper cuts,
Yeah.
situation in
yeah.
media right now where
Right.
Yeah.
you pick up and listen to the one you want or the other
Right.
ones.
And then the social media keeps feeding you similar things. So you kind of,
Yeah.
you are layer by layer enveloped into your own bubble. if
Yeah.
you will.
Right.
Right.
That's true too. Algorithms keep you where they
Keep
want
you where,
Right.
where they want
where they
you.
want you to make more
Right.
money.
Keep scrolling.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know. It's
Very
crazy.
interesting.
It's a different world in that
very
way,
different
yeah.
world.
So that was a pretty well cited paper, wasn't it? Like,
I mean,
was-
maybe less so, but
pretty
I mean,
popular.
certainly the incivility one was tons, just because we started a new construct, and
Right.
the construct has continued to be relevant, I think, to folks.
when you get a popular topic that
Yeah.
gets published,
Yeah.
what does that look like? Do you like all of a sudden like
Suddenly you are
people
like,
start
yes.
paying for your flights to go talk?
Chris and I got, flown to San Francisco to be in the San Francisco Chronicle, because at the time they had to take physical pictures of us
wow.
and stuff, in the 90s when we did all this. Yeah, we got a lot of attention at the time. It was before you could just be, zoom in somewhere or something. Yeah. Yeah, so it was cool to be. I've always been attracted to that. Like cynicism toward business was another construct that Tom and I introduced. I've always been interested in new concepts and new constructs, because it's kind of more fun to do that than to do the dirty work of turning them into survey items and instruments and all
You are
that.
inspired, Lynn. Look
Yeah.
at the wonderful research he's doing, right? It just sounds super interesting.
Yeah.
Really.
No,
It does.
hardly, but
It does.
I don't know.
Some popular topics and throwing some good light on that.
Yeah.
Giving a different perspective altogether. Right? Very interesting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Super.
So maybe let's look at the big picture a little
Sure.
bit, right? And the big picture being like when you think about studying, when you think about your next papers, when you
Mhm.
think about the world of research,
Mhm.
What are some challenges to that world
Yeah.
that you want to see? What are some
Well,
changes?
I gotta say, as a long time, I guess I joined as a doctoral student. I joined the Academy of Management again, which is a huge 25,000 person group of management, broadly speaking, scholars from around the globe. There's like 30 divisions within it. It's a giant
Mm,
conference every year. Um, and we have our very lofty academic journals, the Academy of Management Journal, the Academy of Management Review, the Academy of Management Perspectives. They're all kind of the top journals in the field of management. Um, I got kind of excited and glad when maybe in the 2010 to 2020, somewhere in that era, um, I started seeing, which I was grateful for, the leaders of the Academy of Management saying, look, yeah, guys, we're part of the problem. We gotta, we're perpetuating these old models of business. We gotta solve the big problems of the day. We need to start publishing more papers and research that are trying to solve the big. There was a call to arms
Oh,
by our Academy leaders. And it was interesting. It just so happened, it happened to be the one year, I forget, maybe 2014 or 2015, when the president of the Academy of Management was one of the critical management studies scholars for the first time, a guy named Paul Adler at the
oh,
University,
Paul
a
Adler, yeah.
Kiwi actually, or he's an Aussie from the University of Southern California. He was head of the Academy of Management, and that was heartening to me to see someone who was, critical of business and critical of the world be head of this major organization and be part of the push and call for our field to be more interrogative and
Sure.
not accepting of the status quo and not accepting of the shareholder value only model
Wow.
of business and stuff. So I am heartened that the field in general is much more embracing of qualitative, critical things that question kind of established business tenets. That I feel like the scholarship is moving in that direction
Okay.
much more, and an understanding that we got to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. We got
Oh,
we got to
sure.
not perpetuate these business models that are exploitive of people and natural resources. And
Sure.
so to me, I am heartened by that. I'm heartened by the growth of critical management studies. That's a little subgroup of the academy that says, you know, scholars should also be activists. We should be changing business schools. We should be
Really?
questioning business schools. We should
Scholars
be,
should be
yeah,
activists.
yeah. That
Okay.
group believes that. Not everybody believes that. And of course,
Sure.
it's not a popular concept, but that's a group within our Academy of Management. In addition
Nice.
to, the old Michael Porters and business policy and
Of
strategy
course.
group,
Of
the
course.
mainstream group.
Right.
So I do I love all the many voices that are in business schools now and questioning the value of business schools.
Mm.
And I was also fortunate enough during 5 Springs for 5 years. I taught at a business school in San Francisco called the Presidio Graduate School of Sustainable Business, where all the MBA and MS programs were taught through the lens of sustainability. Like your
Oh,
finance class
okay.
was sustainable finance, your
Nice.
HR class was sustainable people management and stuff like that. And I
Interesting.
think I'm seeing more business schools kind of go that route too. So I'm wondering, you guys, as business school consumers, as having MBAs and now doing a DBA, do you think business schools need to change?
100%.
Oh, did th-
100%. And the certainty in my voice comes from what my son has been telling me.
Ah, what does he do?
So he is in finance industry. He
Mhm.
recently quit his job, saying he's burnt out and so on and so forth. Uh, he is refusing to do his master's,
Wow.
right? And one
Yep.
of the reasons he says, I don't know if it is relevant anymore,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
Management study is relevant
Right.
anymore.
Right.
So, I mean, I have been pushing
Yeah.
back as
Yeah.
as a person who's not only has an MBA but
Yeah.
not doing his DBA,
Right.
and I'm like,
He's
I
right.
think you have to look at it from pursuit of knowledge
Right.
than doing anything else,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
So
Sure.
I think MBA has definitely changed. I think
Yeah.
management has definitely changed
Yeah.
from the time 1991. I'm 93, 94 graduate,
Yep.
MBA graduate, and definitely has changed, Kevin.
I think
What do you think?
I think there should be a high burden on learning. Like I just
Mhm.
am one of these people that's like lifelong learning is a good thing.
It's great.
Right?
Yes.
Whether it's for business or personal,
Right.
doesn't matter. So does business need to change? Like, does academia and business need to change? I think probably. I think you said it earlier. Like it's behind the times
Yeah.
almost always.
Yeah.
And it's got to be hard because you've got like major events like COVID changing how people learn. So you have kids in high school probably aren't as educated as they were, and so it's kind of a tough one for me. Maybe we're at a good spot and we need to balance out. So
Yeah.
for what I'm seeing right now in our program, I think the program's trying to go the right direction and trying to be a
Good.
lot more on the ground.
Mhm.
Like we talk about, cases like within our own workplaces. We talk to each other about those type of things. So
Mhm.
I think we're there.
Good.
And I think we keep it there. That's where
Good.
Right. I mean, just to broaden this topic, don't you think the whole education, the way we educate our children from K1 to
Mhm.
K12 all the way college really needs to be changed completely because
There-
we're still
yeah.
following the agrarian society, agrarian
Mhm.
model.
Yeah.
When summer break, 3 months, people have to kind of help out on the farm,
Right.
Yeah, I had
that
a
kind of
buddy-
stuff.
I had a buddy who would always say, like, we're not training factory workers anymore.
Right.
Like you go to,
Right.
you go to school from 8 to 5.
Right.
You go to
Right.
school from 9 to 3.
Yep.
Like, why? That's
Why is that?
That's not the working
Yeah.
world. Like, does it have to be the working world?
Right.
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 I'm with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot needs to change.
All right. So
Yeah.
some really fun things at the end of the show.
Okay.
The
Yes.
final cohort, completely different.
Okay.
Some yes or no, some this or that questions,
Okay.
some rapid fire. All right.
So rapid fire. We loved it last time.
Okay. All right.
Got a
okay,
few of 'em.
Okay.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Coffee.
Hot chocolate.
Oh
Threw a
my God.
curveball there.
That wasn't on the
Uber or Lyft?
Lyft.
Uber.
I mean, Uber just made us late for the show, so I got
Yeah.
to
But
Lyft.
I would tell you if you
Lyft is
allow
supposed to be
me,
better for females.
Kevin, I will.
Oh.
If you is that right?
Yeah, that's kind of what the rap is. My daughters say that.
Okay, but I would say this about Uber.
Yeah.
That is one app that works everywhere in the world the same way.
Yeah, it does.
That's true.
You
Yep.
really don't have to do
Yep.
anything.
That's
True.
true.
I show up in London, it works. I
Yep.
show up in Delhi, it works.
Yep.
Yeah.
I go to Singapore, it just works.
That's a good point.
They exploit workers beautifully in every country
Oh
and
my
look in
God.
the world.
They're pretty good at that, aren't they? Hardcover, paperback, or ebook?
Ebook.
Paperback.
Ebook.
Oh, I like hardcovers.
Paperback. Oh, we're
That's
we're
fine.
different.
You're
yeah.
different.
Yeah,
Yes,
we are.
yes.
Mac or Windows?
Mac.
But Windows by virtue of like habit.
Right.
Mac? You're a Mac guy.
I'm a Mac guy. I got turned into a Mac guy when I used to work for IBM.
Oh.
We were all PCs,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
And then IBM had I was part of that, the biggest Apple, partnership with Apple.
Yeah.
And we became one of the only resellers,
Wow.
right? So entire workforce, 100,000 people were
Wow.
converted to Apple.
Okay.
We were
Wow.
given Apple phones, Apple iPads,
Right.
Apple Macs, and so
And you've just never gone back.
I just never.
Yeah, no way. Windows all the way for me.
Okay.
Me too.
HP
I-
guy. HP guy.
It's not even before that. I've always been
Oh.
Windows. Yeah, like
Yeah.
you put the 3 colored dots in the top left, and I don't know what to do.
Right.
and
I mean,
then-
from the era that I come from, it was all DOS.
Oh,
they're
I
not
know
awesome.
how to program DOS. I coded. I know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? How
That'd
we
be
aging
the-
ourselves,
Yeah,
Kevin.
yeah, that's true. I was not the DOS era.
Rather
I
DOS.
was totally DOS era.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
My engineering school, 82, 86, we had cards.
Oh,
Deck System 10.
I learned. I did
Remember-
biostatistics by putting cards into our
Cards, right?
mainframe and getting printouts from our
Kevin, do you
mainframe.
even know what we're talking about?
Yeah.
No, you see,
He doesn't even know what cards are. Right? He's like my son who doesn't know what a floppy disk is.
Yeah, see, I got
Right?
that. It's the save icon, right?
Yeah. It's okay.
And then finally, I know your answer: qualitative or quantitative?
I'm qual now, but I was quant.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
Well, I have to say I was quant.
Yeah.
For the first, in MBA school and then post MBA being
Yeah.
consulting, it's all about quant.
Yeah.
But I'm realizing that quant doesn't serve you very well. You miss out half you said something I'm forgetting now, but just by giving surveys to people, you miss out the entire context,
Sure.
right? So I am now firmly in the qual section. But I would also tell you, Lynn, if I can, frankly, somebody told us in the beginning of the cohort that finished DBA is the best DBA.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right? So I
Yes.
really don't want to get stuck.
No. No. Finished is good.
Finished is good, right? As they say
Yeah.
in software development, right? The shipped is better than delayed,
Yeah, that's true.
right?
That's true.
So ship it first.
What
So
about
I don't
you,
know.
Kevin? Where are you?
I naturally go quant. It's
Yeah.
an engineering background.
Yeah.
But qualitative is kind of more creative and fun.
Yeah.
Yes, it's definitely more creative.
I see you have that brain too. You got the brain. You could be qual so easily. You just listen, your engagement, the way you're engaging with us in the world. You could easily be a qual person too.
Super.
Lynn, thank you so much. It's been
Lynn, thank you
So
very
fun.
much.
Such a treat.
yeah.
Right. We look forward to your class as well.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
All
All right,
right.
that wraps it up here for the second episode of Cohort in Progress. Check us out. Follow us on all the podcast places you want to listen to. Give us a like and subscribe on YouTube, and we'll see you at the next one.
Take care.